Welcome to The Favorites, the podcast presented by Bet365. We are part of the Action Network. I am Chad Millman, Chief Content Officer of the Action Network, and joining me for a very special episode of the podcast is my co-host, my companion, my compadre, my BFF professional bettor, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
Chad, it's a great day. About to talk some NBA, maybe a little European football. And at the end of the show, we got a little special treat for the fans of the show. We got some sharp calls, man, about our week one bet. So, yeah, really fun show to this week.
Yes, at the end of today's episode, Simon and I will dive into the sharp calls he received about our week one NFL conversation. But first, NBA finals begin next week. We know the Boston Celtics will take on the winner of the Western Conference Finals. The Dallas Mavericks can punch their ticket with a win tonight in Game 5 of that series. Joining us today to discuss this potential NBA Finals matchup, all things hoops, former Boston Celtic, former Dallas Maverick, seasoned NBA veteran, and currently with the Miami Heat, the pride of Edmond, Oklahoma, Josh Richardson. What's going on, Josh?
Not much, man. I appreciate you guys having me in.
We're glad you're here. We got a lot to talk about. We will talk NBA playoff basketball generally and a little bit more specifically about some of the teams, obviously the Celtics, who you know quite well. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Catch every episode of The Favorites live on YouTube. For those enjoying on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. All right, Josh. Dallas is looking good. Boston, you've played with. You've practiced with guys on these rosters. If it is Dallas versus Boston in the finals, what's the biggest thing the Celtics must do against Luka? And then vice versa, what must the Mavericks do against Tatum and Brown?
Yeah, I think Boston's biggest thing defensively has got to be they have to send different coverages. Because if Luka gets comfortable against the coverage, against a drop, he's going to get the guard on his back. He's 6'8", 240. So, as soon as he comes off that screen, the big guy's basically in jail. So, I think they have to mix the coverage. They have to drop. They have to hedge. They got to send a blitz so other guys, have to play and make decisions. I think Kyrie's been, one of the best players in these playoffs this year. So slowing those two guys down is really never easy. But I feel like their best chance is just, mixing it up with high pressure or, just kind of switching it up and kind of letting him think a little more. But they have two of the best playmakers, scorers, that the league's ever seen almost. So it's never going to be easy, but I'd say that. And then I'd say the Mavericks slowing down, JT, JB, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser. If KP comes back, they just have so many weapons, man. I think their biggest strength is their versatility and how they can spread everything around. Al Horford making 7 threes in a game last week is like, you do your job and everyone else, and then he comes out and does that, and it's like, damn, like, where's the hole at? You know what I'm saying? And it's like they don't have any offensive holes in their team. So basically, I'd say just being strong across the board. You know what I'm saying? Don't let one guy just get going and get super confident. But it's easier said than done. They have 2 All-Stars, could have been 3 All-Stars. KP could have been an All-Star at some point. So Horford's been an All-Star multiple times. So I just feel like controlling the pace of the game because Luka likes to slow it down and kind of see the full court and letting him do his thing. And I probably said those are the biggest things for each team.
So you mentioned you got to blitz Luka, and obviously one of the most important plays in this series with the Wolves and the Mavs was that game-winning shot he hit, and he basically had Rudy Gobert one-on-one, and he put him on skates. When you're watching that,
Yes.
yeah, right? So when you're watching
Yes.
that and you see that as a player, are you asking yourself, how did they let themselves get in a position where Rudy Gobert ends up alone when they knew that was going to be the exact play? Everybody
Mhm.
in the building, everybody watching the game knew exactly what was going to happen. How do players end up in a position where that ends up being the matchup that the Mavs get when everybody knows that's what they want?
I mean, it's tough, man, because Luka's just so good at like getting in the position that he wants. You know what I'm saying? So if you look at the play, like Gobert came up and it wasn't the plan for him to switch on to Luka. But as the screen happened, everything happened. Luka's so good at like he stopped, he waited, he got guy on his back, he backed it up, and McDaniels didn't want to switch. You could see it in his face that he didn't want to switch after it happened. And Rudy just got caught out on an island. And you if you watch hoops, there's history to that matchup. With their countries to, even in the league matchups. And Luka just like he for some reason he loves that matchup. And so I mean, if I was watching another show while the game was happening, Jamal Crawford, called the exact move, like, oh, he's gonna step back. And I'm sitting at my house like some of my boys are here. I'm like, oh, he's gonna shoot a step back. And it's like it's one of the most unstoppable moves in the game. And I think Rudy is a great defender. And it was just a tough shot to make over a 7 foot whatever guy. But when you're looking at Luka and Kyrie, it's like you can't really even say that at this point anymore because they've done it so many times. It's like you got to send something else. Like you got to make someone else beat you. But he's just great at manipulating the game and getting the ball to the spots that he wants. And I think that's really what he did with that play.
Kyrie is so freaking talented. What he can do with the ball and put it on a string, and then his shot making around the hoop, and the fact he can just light it up in the second half when he was absent in the first half, almost at will.
Yeah.
What do players say about Kyrie? Because he's been such a mercurial personality for so long. And the way he's evolved in Dallas and the way his game is elevated, what do players say about him as a talent when they're just talking amongst themselves about basketball?
Yeah, it's kind of known like that Kyrie is just one of the most talented, like overall across the board players ever to touch a ball. I think he has the best handle ever, like ever. I think he's the best ball handler ever in the NBA. And I think there's a lot of guys that would agree with that statement. It's not like an outlandish thing to say. A lot of guys are like, yeah, I can see that. And and just the way that he's grown like as a leader, since he was in Cleveland, the way that he's just like kind of evolved himself is really cool to see. It's not great from the other side of the game because we're competing against him and he's just like, he's always leveling up. But, he's as a finisher around the rim, a lot of guys know that like, it's a thing. Like if Kyrie was like 6'5", like he'd be completely unstoppable, like completely unstoppable. And so just yeah, man, it's just a testament to his work and to his growth that people are seeing right now. But I mean, I think that he's always been one of the best guys, one of the most talented guys with the handle and finishing, his clutch factor. He's made gigantic shots and that's kind of a tip of the hat to his mental, what I'm saying? He's mentally so strong, especially with all the things that he's had going on, off the court with the media messing with him and stuff. For him to just stay so locked in, what I'm saying? it's definitely something to be commended.
Who in the Mavericks locker room or in the NBA anywhere is the best at either mimicking Luka or giving Luka a hard time for the amount that the histrionics after so many shots and the amount of times he gets in a ref's face?
It might be Mark Cuban. um, Cuban makes fun of him for it a lot, but he does the same thing when he's out there. He sits courtside every game, and he's always so into the game and letting the refs have it. It's cool to have an owner that's so like involved and invested in what's going on for the game. I'm trying to think of like a player that'll really like Maxi Kleber kind of messes with him about it. I don't know if he still does, but when I was in Dallas, he was definitely a little bit. But nobody really just like messes with him about it. It's kind of just like a thing. Like, all right, just let him go, and hopefully he doesn't get a tech.
It makes me so happy hearing you give Kyrie his flowers, just because I think it is a media thing, right? I think real basketball players and hoopers like Kyrie. Like Kyrie says some crazy
Yeah,
stuff every now and then. Who cares? It was really like Boston, that whole thing. That's why I want the redemption. Like I don't even want to get into all that, but him, if he would beat Boston, I mean, I love Kyrie. I'm biased as well, I should say up front. I'm a Duke fan. So to me, when I first got into Kyrie, I'll never forget, we were at the rec playing basketball. My buddy was like, dude, he's literally Jason Williams. And I'm like, nah, he's not Jason Williams. He's like, wait till you see this kid, because he watched him in high school. And he is so much, again, Jason Williams was incredible, but Kyrie is another level. Like you said, the handling, he is in a box with three guys around him and he can get out of that box. It really is something special. So you're talking about here, the defense. Why is there no adjustments to make? Because we know the defense gets so hard and intense in the playoffs. Is there just no adjustment? Like, is Luka and Kyrie that? Like, people are talking about one of the best backcourts in all of basketball. Is there no adjustment? Because people keep saying, well, Boston has the guys, right? Jaylen Brown is one of the best defenders. I mean, we're talking about a team here that has the guards, apparently. Is this like the dream scenario where it's like, no, there is nothing that can stop Luka or Kyrie? What's your view on that?
yeah. And one thing in the playoffs, defense really like changes. Like defense really like hunkers down. You know what I'm saying? Like you're having like hour and a half, 2 hour film sessions, on every day between games. And so like if they call a play, like the other team knows the play. Like it's not like they're like you're watching on TV and it's like, oh, how'd that guy get so open? They should know that. Like it's there's never that unless like somebody just completely blows a coverage. And at this point in the season, if anyone besides like the superstar on the team blows a coverage like that, it's gonna be a huge issue. You know what I'm saying? They're probably coming out of the game, to be honest. And so a lot of it just comes down to like making plays. Like mano y mano, me and you, like I'm better than you, basically is what they've been doing a lot of these playoffs. And you can make whatever adjustment you want, man. Like it's usually going to come down to shot making. Like a lot of the playoffs, like you see in the regular season, a lot of layups and threes. That's the thing. Like today in the NBA, like we got to get layup, we got to get a three. Like analytics, like come on, let's do it. But in the playoffs, the game slows down. A lot of it comes down to okay, who can get a shot up? We can't get a turnover. They're sitting on every action. Who can find like this much space to get that mid range off or to get that that floater off? You see Kyrie shooting these left handed floaters, which is like who else really does stuff like that besides like Mike Conley, who has the best offhanded floater in the league. But yeah, a lot of it's just shot making.
Defense in the playoffs. We talked a little bit about this before we all went on the air. You are known as a defender. It's how you've made your name in the league. And even when you were in high school, when you were in college, it's not like you were a guy scoring 30 points a game, right? You were a guy who has made his way into professional basketball as a staunch defender.
Mhm.
Explain how it levels up in the playoffs? Because that is what's constantly talked about, is how much harder defense gets.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it does. And I kind of touched on it just a minute ago. It's just like the 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 preparation, I think, is the biggest change in defense from like regular season to playoffs. Because regular season, you're playing different guys. You look at the scouting report on a team for a couple of days. If you get lucky, because we play every what 2 nights on average. You know what I'm saying? So even on back to backs, like your scouting report's that morning, and you're just gonna have to go off of that. But now, you're just sitting there, just like studying these guys, studying the percentages, their tendencies, where they like to go, and the plays that the teams like to run with what personnel. And I mean, the physical like aspect of the defense, I feel doesn't really change. It's just the small adjustments and the amount of time you just literally spend in the film room, seeing the best way to stop these guys.
Who do you like to watch defensively to pick up tips that you think nails it in the NBA right now?
I think Drew Holiday, man. I think he's just done like such a great job. As a perimeter defender myself, I think I see a lot of things that he does on the court that I could really, pick up from or take from. He's a pest, and I've seen him bother some of the best players in the NBA for 40 minutes in a game, and it's like man, like this guy can't even like really get a shot off. He can't even really get to the spot he wants to. Drew is just like blowing every play up. Drew is just his mental, like he's a step ahead of everything. And some great defenders, but his like cerebral aspect of the defensive game is like next level, I feel.
And I love
How?
Drew.
Go ahead.
Also, he's a guy who he went through a lot in life. Like people don't know his story, what he's gone through, but read into it. Like this, I'm a Sixers fan, so I've been following his career since he was 17. Like we literally took this kid and he graduated college early. Like, he was legit 17, 18 when the Sixers took him. So yeah, like you breaking it down there, it's so true. Like this guy, people kept writing him off, right? When he got traded from Milwaukee, people wrote him off. And again, here he is in the NBA Finals as a key piece to this Celtics team. I love that you're giving him praise there. But I mean, you're talking about these competitive teams. What is the most competitive environment you've played in? I mean, you've played in so many big games for so many different teams. Like, what is the environment that just really sticks out in your mind as wow, that was next level?
Like as in like a game or a team or what?
Yeah, like the stadium. Like, I mean, we've heard all these stories about how crazy MSG is, but we know that
Yeah.
there's other places just as crazy, right? Or is that really the pinnacle?
I mean, MSG is probably in my top three favorite places to play, to be honest with you, just from the pure like it's like a stage there, like the people there is one thing, like it's like, oh yeah, this is crazy. Like I remember my second year in the league, um, I was going for a loose ball and Alicia Keys was sitting courtside, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God. And I was like obsessed with her for a long time. So like
Yeah.
that was probably my welcome to MSG moment. But I'd say a crazy like just environment that I played in. I'd probably say Philly in the playoffs. What my third year was like every game, every minute of that series was like a dog fight, like a real dog fight. And the fans in Miami, the fans in Philly, the history there. And yeah, I mean, we had a great series, I feel, and it was like a lot of big moments, a lot of moments for the crowd, and for us and for them to really like insert themselves into the game. So I'd probably say that series.
Derek White the other day in a story on ESPN.com uh, had an anecdote about his welcome to the NBA moment where he was just getting hounded by Pat Beverly. Do you remember your your welcome to the NBA moment?
Um, yes. Um, my welcome to the NBA moment actually happened in the preseason. Actually, I'll give you two welcome to the NBA moments. So our first one was like my third preseason game. We were playing the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans. And so on the team. It's me and Justice Winslow are rookies, and it's like, you know, that team's like D Wade, like Chris Bosh was still playing, Mari Stoudemire, Goran Dragic, Luol Deng, who was my vet. Shout out Lou, it's my dog. And so we're playing the Pelicans, and this is like my first minutes. You know, like, you know, the preseason, like young guys who aren't like the top picks aren't really getting a lot of playing time. So I'm like, you know, I'm chilling, like working hard off the court, trying to figure it out. So we're playing them, and I go in like the second quarter. I'm like, what? I'm going in this early? So I match up on Eric Gordon, great player. So we're in the if you're looking at the goal, we're in the left corner. So if you're coming out, he's going to be coming off of a screen to his right hand, which he loves. So we come off the screen. He's a shooter, so I trail the screen. I'm like, okay, like I can't let him get this three off. He catches, turns the corner sharp, straight down the lane. I'm like, all right, this is right up my alley. I'm about to plaster this on the glass. So he goes off his right foot. I jump off a two. I must have pulled my arm back completely behind my head trying to like block this. This man dunks the ball right on me. I'm like, there's no way, bro. There's no way. I get taken out right after. I'm walking to the bench. I'm like, yo. And D Wade just like stands up in front of me and just gives me like the Catholic blessing. I was like, welcome to the league, young fellow. And I was like, ah. And then I'd say the second one, my rookie year, I didn't really play like my first like 40-ish games, like 42-ish games. And so I was kind of living like vicariously through Justice. You know, I was like talking to him, like seeing how he feels out there. And I match up my first game getting to play because we had injuries was against the Warriors in 2016. And my first matchup is Steph Curry. So I'm like, all right. Long story short, I go out, I'm aggressive. I'm like, you know, I felt like I in my heart feel like I did a decent job. But the stat sheet will say that Steph had 40 points that game. But and I was on him for a good majority of that game. But that was like my like, all right, like these guys are really serious moment.
Well, what's interesting about that is, you know, you say you were a second round pick. You're playing on the Heat, and the Heat, look, Heat culture has become a real thing, right? And we've seen how the Heat have developed players over the years. What is it about their system? And obviously you're back there now. What is it about their system that allows for that kind of development? So a player like you, who maybe doesn't play for 40 games, is going to come off the bench in the middle of a season, and they feel confident that you've gotten to the place that you need to be. And no one else might know that yet, but you will, despite getting lit up by Steph for 40, prove to everybody that you have put yourself, that they have put you in the right position. How do they manage that development?
For me personally, at the time I was frustrated. I didn't love it, you know, but first of all, with the Heat culture, I think the biggest separator from that and other teams is the accountability aspect of it. You know, like I've been on a few teams where it's like, you know, yeah, like things are cool, things are nice, like the team has good chemistry and everything, but like once it really comes down to it, the accountability across the board is just not always there. And so sometimes people can get sensitive about some things. And here, like that's non-existent. Like they've done a great job of like weeding out the aspect of like conflict when it comes to like accountability. Like you're doing this wrong, blah blah. Like we'll go at it, and like people will argue, people might fight. You know what I'm saying? But Bo and the coaching staff do a good job of letting it go and letting the guys like handle it themselves and solve it themselves. And Spo and the coaching staff are part of that. Like they hold themselves accountable. And I think it's a big deal that, you know, they let us hold them accountable too when necessary. But for me, my rookie year, not playing, you know, he told me before the season started, was like, you're probably not going to play much. Like, you're probably, you know, not going to suit up a lot of these games your first like couple years, honestly. But I was ready not to play for a long time. And so I'm on the scout team for a long time. He's like, treat this like your game. So I was like, I was that guy in practice that like everyone like kind of like this freaking guy. Like he's going extra hard in this drill. Like this is not even that time. And I'm like trying to like run myself into the ground. Like I'm like, I don't care. I'm gonna be the best at this. I'm going to get this. And I'm like traveling with the team and I'm not getting to play though. And so the coaches did a good job of just staying in my ear, like just keep working. It's gonna be a time where Spo's gonna have to throw you in there in the fire and you gotta be ready when that chance comes. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm still working. I'm kind of like started asking to go to the D League at the time, the G League now, but I was like, can I just go down there and like play, like get a couple games, maybe see like put some of this stuff into use. And so they finally sent me and I go down for 4 games and I average probably like 28 a game. And like it was a blessing. We had just played in Santa Cruz and I got called up to the team like right after that. And because a few of our point guards got hurt, and then I played every game of the season after that.
You mentioned accountability, which is really interesting. And you say that the players will hold the coaches accountable. Give me an example of what that looks like in either of your stints with the Heat.
Yeah, so Spo will have like in preseason, he'll have like, guys come talk to us, you know what I'm saying, and kind of kind of like class, you know what I'm saying, just to learn. Because Spo's a big like component of learning and like bettering yourself. And so we had like these Navy SEALs come and when somebody would say something and like to you, like for example, like if you were like, J Rich, I need you to be better on this, like on that coverage because you've blown it twice, blah blah blah. I'm like, and then I would say, okay, check. Like because they say check once like they understand what's being said. And so probably like my third, actually all through my first few years after that, like we'd be in huddles and like Spo sometimes would like get into the game and he'd get like really passionate and he kind of like take it over the top, which is fine. Like it's good to have a coach that does that sometimes because they care. But like sometimes people would say like, put it in the box, which means forget about it. It's over. Like we're moving on. And so like all throughout both stints here, like if something happens with the coach, they say put it in the box, and Spo would literally be like, all right, you're right, check, and then we keep going. Like it happened in Phoenix this year. We were getting blitzed by the Suns, and third quarter starts, we're getting smacked. They go on an early run in the third quarter, and Spo comes back, throws the clipboard at the bench, and Bam's like, coach, that's not helping us. Like that's not helping us right now. You doing that? Like let's reel it back in and figure this out. He's like, you're right. And we sat down and got to it. We still lost, but it was a good moment for the chemistry, I feel.
So before you get out of here, I know you got to get going. As a defensive player, who's the hardest guy to defend for you?
Ever, I would say James Harden on the Rockets. James Harden on the Rockets and is like toward the end of his stint there was completely unguardable.
How come?
The step back, man, the step back, he changed the league. And the way he was so good at drawing those fouls, he was incredibly explosive off his first step, but his deceleration and step back was also like top notch, best I've ever seen. So I'd say James, just from 3-level scoring, getting in the paint, still dishing, still being able to shoot from 30 feet with no issue.
Josh Richardson, Miami Heat, NBA veteran. Thanks for joining the show. Fantastic conversation. As Simon and I teased at the top of the show, folks, yesterday we recorded a special edition of Sharp Calls with insights from the pros on our early week 1 bets. Here's what they had to say. Last week, Simon and I recorded an episode in which we looked at the week 1 NFL lines and we treated it like a regular season NFL episode. We did a big balls, we did a Simon Says, we did an exec decision, we did a foxhole. Naturally, Simon got a lot of feedback from the professionals. So since we had a week one look at the lines in which we named all of our bets, it seems only natural, Simon, that we would have a segment of sharp calls.
So where do you want to start, Chad? You want to know what we got right, what we got wrong, what we missed?
Well, I want to start with what you told me is what everyone thought I got right.
That's very on brand. Yeah. So number one call, definitely a lot of love for the Cardinals. I thought that was the Joe Public play of the offseason.
Cardinals, by the way, 7-point underdogs on the road. I forgot who they're playing.
And they're playing the Bills. And I've seen
That's
a
right.
couple respected offshore books hit plus 7.5. So even though the pros love this Cardinals number, this is a game that I think books are expecting just to be a really big time teaser parlay game. So, another reason why me and Chad will probably take this money line and throw it in the round robin, because this is a big teaser parlay breaker. But yeah, I kind of badmouth Kyler, and I got a bunch of guys reaching out to me saying Kyler's kind of changed. He's kind of grown up a little bit. And apparently he's living in the building. He's there all day, every day. Even before he was required to show up, he's been showing up and putting the work in. So if that's true, and we kind of see that this summer, and it holds water, then I will backtrack on what I said, that he wasn't fully committed. I thought he was more committed to off field stuff and playing video games. But if Kyler's all in, he's one of the best athletes I've ever seen. And now you're throwing in, one of the best receivers I've ever seen in college football now coming in. We've seen the transition, right, Chad? There is no waiting period usually for these guys. Usually they come in and they just dominate. And that's what we expect Marvin Harris Jr. So you're going up against a team that's lost all their receivers and a team that's added one of the best receivers in football. So I understand their logic here. They're saying the back door will always be open in this game, and that the Bills, I keep thinking of the Bills like yesteryear, of this higher powered offense that could really put it onto teams. But I think what Chad's shaking his head at is probably right. What these professionals said. I think Chad's what to say now, which is like, this isn't the same Bills team. I don't think they're gonna be blowing teams out like they used to be. So yeah, Chad's feeling pretty good here. The pros agree with him on taking this plus 7.
Chad feels pretty good all the time, Simon, but he feels especially good when the wise guys agree with one of his picks. Our other picks, our foxhole bet was going to be Pittsburgh +3. I will say I got a call from someone saying, how could the foxhole be Pittsburgh +3? Like, that feels like the most public bet you could possibly make. Everyone is going to be on that bet. Any feedback on that one?
Yeah, Atlanta's the new shiny toy. I disagree. Everyone's gonna like Kirk. Everyone's all in on them to win the division. Their overs getting hit. I talked to a bunch of bookmakers. I mean, everyone's all over this Atlanta team. It's exciting. If you're an Atlanta fan, you got to be excited. Like, you have all the toys, you've just never had the conductor, and now you got it in Kirk. But me and your reasoning is so true. You have a guy coming off a major injury in his first start on a new team, going against arguably the best end in the last 5-6 years in JJ Watt, or shouldn't say JJ Watt. Sorry about
TJ.
that. Yeah, I know. I just couldn't. I was like, I can't believe I just called him JJ. But yeah, it's just a spot me and Chad like to take. And I've heard the pushback as well, where guys are taking the 2.5 on the Falcons. That's what I think the value is. When me and Chad think the value is on Pittsburgh here. And I know I've had a couple of people too say, well, Pittsburgh usually gets out slow. Didn't me and you win a big bet on Pittsburgh's money line against Joe Burrow? Like, that was week 1 when they beat them 2 years ago. So, don't overreact to last year. They got blown out by the 49ers. Me and Chad were right there with you. People, like, no one saw that coming. We should have. Hindsight's 2020, but I'm not going to react to what they've done the previous first weeks of the year. I'm looking at this year, and it's not even that it's so much me betting on Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. It's really us about playing the number and what I think is a nice matchup for the Pittsburgh's defense. So I agree, Chad. I understand the pushback. I just think we're playing the number at +3.
New York Giants -1. That was our Simon Says.
Agreement. Like, again, sorry to be boring about it, but yeah, the pros like it. And then the pros that are on the other side, they just view this Giants team is kind of overrated, right? And my disagreement with them is, how are they overrated? And they're saying, well, people like you keep saying that, well, they had that great run 2 years ago with Daniel Jones and him beating Kirk and the Vikings in the playoffs. And that was kind of a flukish season, where last year was more the reality. I just disagree with it. It's like, I think they've added a superstar wide receiver potentially. And I think they've proved a little thing on the offensive line. I think their defense, too, is going to be better than it was last year. So last year was such a fluky year. I think they started 1-5, the Giants. That was just the start from hell. And then the guy gets hurt and it just all fell apart where again, this isn't a split. I think more professionals are on the Giants side. I just viewed this as a slam dunk. I told you I got this at 3, so it's like 2 points of value, and the number is not really budging. I mean, I've even some books shaded towards the Vikings, so it means Vikings money's still coming in. So
Yeah.
they're just another team I think is getting too much love, and I just think JJ McCarthy is going to have insane growing pains. A guy who maybe threw the ball 10 to 15 times in any given start in college. He's going to have massive growing pains, and again, if it's Sam Darnold, even better. So I think this Giants team is being undervalued here, but yeah, there's one game we're going to get to that it's extreme love, Chad. Unfortunately, the Giants game was not it.
Was it Chad Millman's exec decision of the Indianapolis Colts +1.5 at home against the Houston Texans, one of 2 road or home dogs in week 1 right now?
Yeah, I had to smite Chad down real quick. It was one of my favorite bets before we got on. So Chad knew I already loved it. But yeah, the pros love it. It's the definition of why me and Chad love making these kind of bets. It's like we are enamored with the upside of the Colts. We love a good home dog, and not only that, it's a home divisional dog. And then you add in this Houston team is. I mean, we talked about hyped up teams here. Houston's got to be number 1, right? I mean, talk to anyone. I think me and Chad are going to make our own stupid top 10 list this summer, QB list. He's probably going to be in there. Like CJ is just. It's
Oh my
peak
God,
right
of
now.
course
Like
he is.
Yeah, we're all enamored with him. Like watching his film, all of it. And we say it time and time again. You get a full season, they get film on you, and then there's adjustment. That's why usually the best time to bet these guys to get MVP, like the time we got Lamar. Lamar played 3 or 4 games for the Ravens. Then we got a nice 50-1 him the next year. Mahomes came in, only played 1 game, right? And then his second year, he kind of took the league by storm. Then obviously the adjustments come. So yeah, the CJ thing, I get the love for them, but this was a game I knew me and Chad were gonna love, but it's nice to know that basically every pro I've talked to, they're all over this Colts number. And again, if you want to do it in teasers, go ahead, but I got no issue taking the +1.5 or taking the money line here. I love this matchup with the Colts team, not just offensively. I think their defense actually gives CJ's bigger problems than people realize.
You loved it. You put me onto it. But when it came down to it, Simon,
I know.
one of us chose the Giants. One of us chose the Colts. One of us, by the way, did not fall for choosing the Tennessee Titans. And neither of us fell for putting them in at +4.5 against the Bears into our big balls bet of the week. We went with the Los Angeles Rams as road dogs against the Detroit Lions +3.5. To me, it came down to this game and the Jets against the Niners. You felt the Jets was a little bit too public, a little bit too on the nose. You convinced me the Rams were the way to go. Did the wise guys agree with us?
Yeah, the wise guys love it, and they have the same view of me. It's just you're getting Stafford at a great number against a team that I know they went out and drafted guys and added guys of free agency that secondary. I'm happy to bet on it to see if they can prove it, Chad. I mean, me and you historically have done well taking these kind of points with a good quarterback against a Detroit team that just always has the back door open. So to me, I don't even know. I'd say 1.5 points, a point of value, just because Detroit is, like people like me that are saying they have them as their 3rd best team in football right now and their model. It's just crazy to think that Detroit has come that far, that they've drafted this well, and that Goff has worked out this way. I mean, one of my more embarrassing clips is when I first started here with doing the show with Chad. I laughed at Jared Goff. I thought he was going to be out of the league. I think they're 0 for 9, and me and Chad won this insane money line bet on them to upset the Vikings.
That's
and
right.
me and you laughed. We're like, well, let's enjoy it because we'll never win another dollar on Jared Goff's money line. Like he'll be out of the league this summer because they're going to draft a quarterback. I mean, now he just got paid again. He's going to be the highest paid quarterback. So yeah, that was one of my bigger misses. Like what they've done with him has been incredible. So me and Chad once again are playing the number here. I still think this will get to 3. I just think the professionals will come in on it. It's actually come down the juice though. So a couple of books I was paying -120 for the +3.5. Now there's a couple of -110s out there, people on the Rams. So clearly money's coming on Detroit here, but again, not any pro I've talked to. Like most guys I've talked to, they're going to take the points here with Stafford and McVay. Like this is a nice spot historically for us to take these kind of points with this Rams team.
All right, so that's sharp calls. I'm glad we could get an early one in. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary. At Bet365, must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Download us from Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe. Leave us 5 stars. Say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Until next time, love you.